In cities like Calgary, Edmonton, and Hamilton, basement suites account for over 20% of rental supply. Across Canada's newest subdivisions, the basement itself is disappearing from detached homes. Not because buyers stopped wanting one. Building codes, developer economics, and a mortgage system that treats a 1,600 square foot slab home the same as one with a finished basement all aligned to erase it. What vanished with that floor is far more than storage. For most of the 20th century, a full below-grade basement was an automatic expectation in virtually every detached Canadian home. These spaces quietly absorbed the realities of everyday life, acting as laundry rooms, storage zones, extra bedrooms, and rental suites. While other nations treated basements as regional or optional, rare in Japan, regional in the United States, and optional in Germany, Canada built them with unusual consistency. But in subdivisions built after 2010 across the Greater Toronto Area, Calgary, and Edmonton, a quiet subtraction is taking place. From the street, the newly constructed homes look completely normal, featuring the same familiar siding and pitched roofs as the neighborhoods next door. Real estate marketing continues to promote the classic detached lifestyle, masking the fact that the entire lower level is gone, replaced with a concrete slab poured directly on the ground. Many buyers move in without realizing they have lost a massive portion of their home's potential. They purchase the expectation of flexibility, only to find themselves with no room to grow, no space for extended family, and no chance of generating rental income. A fundamental layer of utility has simply disappeared from the Canadian footprint. In 2005, the National Building Code of Canada introduced mandatory thermal insulation and air leakage control for all building assemblies, including foundations. This established a new baseline for energy loss. In December 2012, a federal amendment to the 2010 code added Section 9.36, establishing the country's first prescriptive energy efficiency requirements for houses and small buildings. This update aimed to curb greenhouse gas emissions from residential heating by forcing builders to insulate below-grade walls to much higher R values and lay continuous insulation beneath basement concrete slabs. The 2015 National Code retained this energy performance framework, and the 2020 edition made these rules even more explicit, specifically requiring interconnected foam insulation on foundation walls alongside underslab insulation. These escalating thermal performance demands altered the economics of residential construction. Every additional sheet of rigid foam, specialized vapor barrier, and hour of labor increased the per square foot cost of building below the ground. By the early 2020s, these cumulative code updates made traditional excavation, drainage, and below-grade waterproofing increasingly expensive. To manage these rising budgets, builders adapted, making slab-on-grade foundations the default standard for new low-rise subdivisions across Ontario and Alberta. For a developer, the decision to eliminate the basement comes down to simple spreadsheet arithmetic. Constructing a traditional below-grade foundation adds roughly 30 to 40% to the cost of a typical detached home's foundation package. Opting for a slab-on-grade instead immediately slashes these upfront capital expenditures. Poured directly on the ground, a slab completely removes heavy excavation from the construction sequence. There are no expensive waterproofing membranes to apply, no perimeter drainage tiles or sump pumps to install, and no extensive below-grade insulation layers to integrate. Alongside physical material savings, slabs eliminate major schedule risk. Skipping these complex foundation steps cuts weeks off the construction timeline, allowing homes to be framed, finished, and sold much faster. In highly competitive pre-sale and spec-built markets, these compressed timelines increase developer profit margins. But while the builder secures a faster, cheaper construction cycle, the financial savings are rarely passed down. Instead, the buyer pays the exact same or even higher price per square foot, receiving a significantly smaller, less functional home with absolutely no room to expand. The financial system that funds these developments acts as the ultimate enabler of this quiet subtraction. When a buyer secures a mortgage, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, calculates mortgage insurance premiums using a formula driven strictly by the purchase price and the loan-to-value ratio. Net usable square footage does not enter the equation. Under these underwriting rules, a 1,600 square foot slab home and a 2,200 square foot home with a finished basement are treated as equivalent risks, provided they carry the same price tag. The system fails to distinguish between a multi-level home with room to grow and a concrete slab. For developers, this creates a major financial incentive. They can eliminate the basement, pocket the structural savings, and maintain the exact same headline price on the sales contract. Buyers take on the entire burden of this loss, paying full price for a reduced product because the lending rules treat the missing space as if it still exists. In the Canadian prairies, geology and climate long made the basement an absolute necessity rather than a design choice. Winter temperatures routinely push frost depths between 1.8 and 2.4 meters below grade. Because building codes mandate that house foundations sit securely below this seasonal frost line, builders had to dig deep trenches just to keep the structure from shifting. Once they excavated that deep, enclosing the space to create a livable basement was far more efficient than backfilling it or leaving a cold, empty void. But this geographic rule of thumb eventually weakened. Updated provincial codes and advances in foundation engineering introduced frost-protected shallow foundations. By placing a continuous barrier of high-performance rigid foam insulation around a shallow concrete pad, engineers managed to redirect geothermal heat, keeping the ground beneath the house from freezing. This thermal shield allowed slab-on-grade homes to succeed even in the harsh Alberta climate, removing the physical obligation to dig down. Beyond the loss of personal storage, the disappearance of the basement represents a permanent reduction in Canada's affordable housing supply. In cities like Calgary, Edmonton, and Hamilton, secondary suites are a cornerstone of the rental market. According to 2023 estimates from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, secondary suites, the vast majority of which are basement apartments, make up more than 20% of the entire rental inventory in these metropolitan areas. They serve as a safety valve, offering accessible housing in established neighborhoods. When a developer pours a slab-on-grade foundation, that decision is locked in concrete for a century. It permanently eliminates the possibility of ever adding a secondary suite, locking out future renters and stripping homeowners of mortgage helper income. Across entire subdivisions, these foundation choices quietly shrink the rental pool for generations to come. For decades, the basement served as the Swiss Army knife of the Canadian household. It offered a quiet bedroom for a teenager, space for an immigrant family's home daycare, a workshop, or a rental suite that helped pay down the mortgage. This below-grade level provided a vital buffer zone for families as they grew and faced economic shifts. Now, younger buyers entering new subdivisions find this entire layer of domestic flexibility erased. Slab homes offer no extra storage, no room for home businesses, and no space for aging parents. This generation is inheriting a thinner version of the classic detached home as their new normal. The housing market packages this reduction in function as modern, streamlined progress, while buyers pay full price for a house that can no longer adapt to their lives. Today, the vanishing basement represents a quiet compromise. As we strip flexibility from our neighborhoods, we lose the exact safety nets that kept housing affordable. We are paying record prices for fundamentally less. What do you think? Share your thoughts below.